Welcome to the webinar. This is a webinar on the Introduction to Mission Control and TIM, standing for Threat Intelligence Management from Splunk. My name is Ben Marrable. I'm a senior cybersecurity strategist, and I'll be taking you through the introduction here. Just briefly, a little bit about me. I've been dealing with Splunk technology for many years now with Somerford. I'm working with the entire Splunk portfolio in security, so that's Splunk Core, Splunk Enterprise Security, Splunk SOAR, Splunk UBA, and Splunk Mission Control and Threat Intelligence Management. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a good guide into the new features that Splunk Mission Control is going to give to enterprise security customers around the world. So just very briefly on the sort of plan for the webinar, essentially what I'll do is I'll very briefly talk about case management in Splunk and where it's come from, the history behind it, and why mission control is the sort of new central point to go from. Then I'll go into a demonstration on the technology of mission control, threat intelligence management, and I'll show you through all of that in detail, which will be the sort of main core of it all. So from a history perspective, case management's been around. It's very important for a SIEM operation, right? Some organizations will use an external tool, such as ServiceNow for ticketing system or some other ticketing system to track their cases once Splunk Enterprise Security has detected a notable, or UBA has detected a threat, or SOAR has started acting on things. There are many different ways that you could fire things into a case management system, whether that's a SOAR tool, a SIEM tool, or whatever. But Splunk's previous methodology in enterprise security primarily, it's all about making a single pane of glass, right? The whole ideology of making a single pane of glass. And previously with ES, enterprise security, that has always been using investigations as a case management feature. Now, when SOAR came along, SOAR had another level really, and what they had is events and cases. So you could convert a SOAR event into a case, and it would deem to then have a run book and all sorts of other things to go with it. And that's what in Splunk's old Phantom world and now SOAR world was classed as called mission control. So we're taking elements of all of this and brand new elements to make a single pane of glass and calling this Splunk's mission control, which is now done in a very different way to Splunk SOAR and to ES investigations. But of course, I link to a lot of them. So let's go and have a look at this. So first thing to point out is that mission control is just another app. It's an application that sits on top of Splunk at the moment on Splunk Cloud. And it comes licensed with enterprise security customers, right? So you can have mission control, you can just add it in as an application, or if you're in Splunk Cloud, you might already have it in line there and just wondering how to use it. So one way to start using it is, let's say, take a particular incident. We could take this malicious PowerShell process, for example. You're very familiar, I hope, in terms of enterprise security and the sort of incident review. We can go ahead and actually have a look at this correlation search. So if we load that correlation search up in another window, one thing as an adaptive response action, so we've got all the normal sort of correlation search things here. There is an additional adaptive response action available to mission control environments, which is this mission control incident. So when that notable is alerted, or when that correlation search creates an alert, it does an adaptive response, one of them being risk, one of them being notables, and now a new one being mission control incident. Okay, so it can create an incident, and as it creates it, it will set a specific incident type. Now it could go in as default. Mission control can then reassign it to a different incident type. But the incident type is very important to what the response play will automatically pick up and deal with that particular incident type. You can have a number of different incident types aligned to specific individual correlation searches or use cases, or ones that fit multiple different scenarios, such as lateral movement detected or DLP or something like that. So in this case, it's actually applied to default. But as we see when we go into mission control, we'll see that it's then being reassigned to a different incident type because of what it is. So that's one way of getting incidents into mission control. Another way to get incidents into mission control is you could just create an incident. Let's say someone rings up the service desk and says, I've lost my laptop. Well, that could be an incident that you want to track in mission control, and you can go ahead and just simply click a plus incident and add that in with the response plan that needs to happen for that particular type of incident. So this is the sort of top view of mission control. It's called the incident review. You can see it's very similar to the incident review I just showed you in terms of enterprise security. It's got the ability to search over time periods. It's got filters that you can filter down, and these are actually linked. And you can add and change columns with table settings with a little cog in the corner there. Add in any particular interesting new columns, such as user or a destination field or something like that. You can see in that particular table. You can see all of these are unassigned and so forth. What I want to look at is that PowerShell piece. So let's go ahead and have a PowerShell. We're just going to look over the last sort of 60 minutes, see if we can find any incidents that are matching PowerShell over the last 60 minutes. So here is one. It is new, it's unassigned, so that means I could pick it up. No one else is particularly working on it. I can click on the preview button, and this will give me some sort of a bit more detail around where the state of that is. So again, we can see it's new. It's now got an incident type of encoded PS, encoded PowerShell. So you can see this has actually been changed to be encoded PowerShell. It's matching particular alignments to make it an incident type of that. You can see a detailed description here about what that particular incident is about. You can see where that's come from. So this is an RBA event. You can see the command line that's been run for PowerShell. I mean, you can see that's a lot of different text. It's very difficult to read necessarily because it's encoded. We can also see the laptop. We can see some IPs. You can see some very high level information around what that is. And that preview button gives you a kind of a very good kind of starting point. Now, let's take the ownership of this, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to say it's now in progress and it's assigned by me. So we're going to take ownership of this, and then we're going to go into it and actually have a look at that particular incident. So the first place that you get taken to within the incident view, again, it's kind of highlighted under incident review, but now we've got another sort of panel of tabs here. In this case, we're going to look in the overview. Now in the overview, again, is on the left-hand side, you're going to see all those fields that have been taken out of the ES RBA event. But you can actually see additional fields that have been added in as part of the workbook or part of the incident type and the playbook that needs to go with that. So in this case, manager notified could be yes or no. So there might be additional steps that you need to put into here and additional fields that are assigned specifically to this incident as you progress through that. So you can see all the sort of overview information on the left. On the right, you get a bit more of the information again. You got the status points, the owner, the urgency, and all sorts. You also have the ability to see notes that are sent generally across the entire incident or individually in the response plays. You can see the different ones there. You can add in a note, of course, and you can add in files in a general sense. So from the overview screen, if you add in a note, it will be adding to the general notes, which at the moment we don't have any. So we could say something like just started investigation. And add that in with maybe a bit more detail if we wanted to, but there we go. We can say that we've started the investigation. That's under general notes. If we go show all, we can see some other things that have run in the background here, specifically by SOAR automation user. Okay, so there's automation that's already occurred on this particular use case already for us that have gone through some things. We can upload files, maybe a screenshot or something else that we want to upload as well. So one of the first things that you'll do for these is go into the response, and this tab is going to show you all the different phases that need to be conducted and the tasks within each phase that should be conducted to progress this response play to this particular type of incident, right? So this is an encoded PowerShell detection. The response play comes with 3 phases: initial triage, which is showing 2 tasks, search for IOCs and IOAs, which is 3 tasks, and then render verdict, which is 1 task. So this is the standard sort of response at the point. We could additionally add additional responses. Maybe we've got data breach, we want to add in the tasks that are associated to that play as well, or NIST, or vulnerability disclosure, all sorts of different things. We can add in an additional template absolutely easily like that, very straightforward. But as soon as what we want to do to start with is actually start reacting here and actually dealing with it. So first thing we're going to look at is decoding encoded strings. So we're going to start the task. Now, as soon as we start a task, you'll see that I started it, so therefore it's automatically assigned to me. It's got a description and it's got a playbook. Now, this is already run automatically in the background because everything's automated in this world. But what we can actually do is just add that manually, and we'll go through the process and the steps as if we were clicking through it, as opposed to it all being done automatically for us. But it kind of shows you can do it in two ways. So I'm going to go and kick off this particular playbook, right, which is process analysis. So now this is connecting to Splunk SOAR and running a playbook in the background, taking the details of this event with it as it goes through and does a number of different steps. So this is looking in the process, it's decoding the actual the command line that's being pushed through and coming back with results. So we can go ahead and click on view results, and you'll see this is taking me to the automation tab. So here we can see the results. So we can see the query that's gone through, we can see the decoding, and also part of this playbook has looked in the network traffic data model and search to see where this particular end result has come from, right? So what we can see is we're picking up a particular IP address, and we're taking that IP address and then looking in the network data model for that IP and finding a number of different machines that have also connected to it, okay? Now you can see it in the automations tab, or you can come back to the response tab and see what notes have been added to it. So from a response, you can see that's all coming back. So here's the actual unencoded string. So previously I showed you the encoded string. It was very difficult to read or had no relevance, but you can see it's pulled out a particular IP address that this machine is connected to. And not only that, but there are a number of machines that have also connected to it. And you can see this is Splunk t-shirt company, not Splunk t-shirt company. So there's a slightly different tweak in the URL there, which is how they're getting through. Now I'm going to take a note of this IP address because I want to have a look at it. And what I'm going to do is just go and run a search. Okay, so within this play as well, you can also go straight into the search window, and this is just like you would expect in any sort of world from search. All right, so we can go ahead and add in our IP address. Now I'm specifying it in a term just to say I want that whole term, not individually 45, 77, and so on. That's kind of improved speed. And we're going to have a look over the last 4 hours for that particular term across our data sets. And this is just what you would expect a Splunk search to come back with, right? We'll have a look at the source types. We can see there's a few different source types, but one that I'm kind of interested in, because we've looked at the actual traffic file, so from Symantec, we want to have a look at emails, right? I haven't really looked into emails. That's not what's generated this. So let's go ahead and have a look at emails that are assigned to that. So here, indeed, we've got one event. And if we go down to the recipient field, we will see that the recipient is indeed Theodore at Splunk T-shirt company, which is what we know this laptop, the PowerShell command is run on his particular laptop. So we can expand that, and what we can do is now an event action. This is done via workflow actions, and there's now one that's called add event to mission control incident. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. That's going to take me to the ability to add into a particular incident, a historical incident, or the incident that I'm running, which is 00122. So I can go ahead and click on that and add that into my investigation for the incident. So that's gone ahead and added that. And if I come back into viewing it, I'll see now that that event has been added to this under the events tab. Okay, so this is a really nice way of being able to see the resulting events that have generated this particular incident and keep everything in one place to avoid having to run search again. You can see that and kind of get the details with that, which is great. Okay, now we'll come back to response, and I think we've finished this response. It's done an automatic note for us, so we can end this task. We're happy with it, and we can see we've now got a new tick to say that we've completed this task, and we'll go ahead and proceed to the next task. Now this task is to review process tree, right? So this is obviously a PowerShell command. So what processes execute this command? Let's go ahead and run a search. And this is automatically embedded with the details in here. So we've got the start time, the end time, and the user that might have run that. And down the bottom, we can see the actual response. So in this tree, we can see the PowerShell exe run by h.exe. So now we can think, well, h.exe, we probably want to have a look at that. So maybe I want to add this particular event in. So let's take away the visualization, bring that back, come back into the events. And then let's again expand this event and add that investigation into my incident, right? Add that event back into my incident. So we're deeming this to be of interest, and it's saying about hdor.exe. So again, same incident, add that in, connect that together. wait for that to finish, and then we'll go ahead and open that incident again. And then we're going to come back to the events, and we're going to see that particular event there. And another workflow action that we can do is we can investigate particular things, right? So we'll go down to the event that's generated that hdor.exe, the actual PowerShell here. And we'll expand that down, and we'll just scroll down and we'll find hdor.exe. Here it is, the process name. And we can click on this and we can see particular workflow actions that we want to look into. So one thing we could do is Google hdor.exe, and we'll see that the MITRE details are kind of coming back saying hdor's pretty bad, essentially. So we know that we want to start taking action upon this. Okay, we've had a look at it, we know we've linked everything together, so we can come back to response and we can kind of put in a particular note and say that we want to take a particular response to that. So we'll go ahead and we will just add in a note here to say that process tree showed PowerShell launched hdor, which is malware used to identify open ports on the victim machine, right? So we've done some investigation into what hdor actually does. We can add that in, and now we've got an additional note in there. We can end that task off. So again, we've moved through tasks very quickly here because we've got the ability of running SOAR in the background and automation to kind of add to this response plane. Not only that, but we were able to run the search without having to put in any particular user fields or anything else. It's all ready to go. Very similar to what a drill down search would be in an ES notable, pulling in those variables from the actual event itself. So we're now we've closed we've finished the two tasks in this phase. So we'll move on to the second phase. We'll look at the first task, and this one's looking at indicator reputation analysis, right? So we've got a number of indicators here, and this is where we're going to link into threat intelligence management. So we're going to go ahead and click that run book, similar to what we did before. Obviously, you can see that TrueStar's already given us the enrichment down below in the notes, as it's automatically done this for this incident, but we're going to run through it as well manually. We can go ahead again and view results. Again, this takes us into the automation tab. By the way, you can see every single automated action that's occurred on the left-hand side. You can scroll through them and click through them. Another thing to point out is you can automatically run particular playbooks or actions from this automation tab. And if you do require a prompt in a playbook to the end user, you can see the prompts come up by just clicking on prompts, and you can see if there's any prompts that you need to action. So you might have a prompt that says, do you wish to disable this particular user account or something like that, and you can go ahead and go yes, and it will go ahead and do that disabling for you. So here we can see that it's actually gone to the threat intelligence link, right? It's pulled the data back from this particular file hash and given us some information about it. Again, we could see that in the response play. It's come back and actually shown us that this particular URL is an MD5 hash. Sorry, this particular MD5 hash has come up as being a high impact, right? And it's come from VirusTotal as one particular place, right? And it's known as malware, right? So we know that this is a particularly bad particular hash right now. So we might want to start thinking about what we could do about this in response. So we can close this off, end this task, and so forth. And maybe at this point we've gone, all right, we already know this is bad. We already want to start actually actioning against it. So we can go into the automation and actually run particular actions such as blocking this particular user account. So let's go ahead and disable this user account using our Azure AD graph. So we know Theodore, he's at risk right now. So let's go ahead and add risk Theodore in there. We can run that action straight off the bat. And you can see that result of that action is just running there. And if we go into it, we can see that that's successfully disabled that user account, right? So that's great, very easy, we've done that. We might also want to just block that using Carbon Black, because that's our endpoint tool here. We might want to just quarantine, just block any of those hashes from running. So if we have a look at block hash, and then we can grab that hash from the results and paste that in, and then that could be a hash that we want to just block as well. So we go ahead and run that action, and then again you can just see the results of that with the tick. Click on it and it will go into detail around that's actually gone ahead and been successful, which is great as well. And then finally, maybe what we want to do is just again with Carbon Black, just quarantine the device, because we know that his laptop has been infected, and we might want to act on this on some of the other systems that are connected to that known bad IP as well. But there we go. We've been able to actually investigate, get more information. Okay, one thing that we haven't gone into is the intelligence. So what we can see now is not only that particular artifact, the IP, or the file hash, we can see a number of different artifacts that have been scanned against threat intelligence details. Go ahead and get some information around it. We can see, HDOR is actually used by AlphaV and Imitat malware, and we've got a number of different tags around what that's trying to do. It's part of the crime syndicate, all sorts of different things in there, and we can see Digital Shadows has come back and said that's a high particular threat there. Or if we want to have a look at that file hash, we can go ahead and do that and say both CrowdStrike and AlienVault both rate it as high, and it's part of malware for Mosquisys. Okay, so we can get a lot more information and intelligence around all the different artifacts, all out of the box, just ready here from lots of different threat intelligence feeds, all curated together, which is what the threat intelligence management really does for you. So now that we've done that, we've been able to look into it, we've been able to respond to it, we've gone through particular phases and tasks within those phases. What we could do is go ahead and render our verdict, which in this case, we're going to just start now. We could also just run those response plans in line there, but we're going to go ahead and take a note and say what we've actually done. So we've blocked the user, we've quarantined the device, and we disabled the compromised account, to quarantine the block the hash, sorry, as it says there, and then we can go ahead and actually put in the specific details around what we did there. So use carbon block to block the hash, quarantine device, and using Azure AD Graph, we've been able to disable the user account via door. Go ahead and click save, and then we've got those notes in there. So now on the right hand side, you can also see those as you come through. You can see all of them either in response notes or in general notes. So we're in a very good space. But now we can say, okay, so we've done our investigation, we've done our response. We can go ahead and move that to pending sort of a more senior analyst to come in and just validate that everything has gone as they would expect. We've tied all our events together. We've been able to run searches within it, and we've got automation and intelligence to be able to feed into the whole lot. So hopefully you can see how mission control, as well as threat intelligence management, which comes as part of a Splunk enterprise security license, can really kind of drive your case management and your response plans against any particular bad events that might occur to you, and make that a lot better for you. So with that, I mean, it's quite quick. I just want to thank you all for attending. Very brief little look into it. If you want to go into more detail, if you want to start moving about migrating into using mission control, just reach out. Happy to go through options and plans to do that for you. Thanks again.